Right, okay, so this right now is really bad. This is live right now in like 35 cities across Britain. Far right riots after what happened in Southport, and now the far right are basically rioting all over the place. Not in Plymouth, thankfully, where I'm living. If it was, I would be out there counter protesting. So let's see what's going on now because this is disgraceful. This is a live article, by the way. So from 1 hour ago, all the far right rallies and counter protest reported so far today. Sunderland, which is probably the most prominent so far. The Sunderland protest on Friday evening, that's last night, was among several planned across this UK this evening after the knife attack in Southport on Monday, fueled by misinformation on social media about the background and religion of a 17-year-old suspect. Like I said in my last video, regardless of if he's whatever the ethnicity of the attack is, it doesn't excuse all the riots. Anti-racism group Hope Not Hate. Yeah, well, I'm a bit fishy about Hope Not Hate because of what they said about Corbyn. But anyway, they said up to 35 protests were due to take place across the UK this weekend, under a broad anti-multiculturalism, anti-Muslim, and anti-government agenda, or just call it an anti-people. That's what it is. Here is a list of the far-right rallies and counter-protests reported so far today. Belfast. Hundreds of people gathered at the front of Belfast City Hall for an anti-racism rally on Saturday shortly before noon. We haven't had any anti-racism stuff here for a while, apart from the Palestine stuff. Anyway, because we haven't had any reason to know no EDL in Plymouth. Anyway, the event was organised in response to social media calls for anti-Islamic protests to be staged in Northern Ireland. Police vehicles formed a barrier between the anti-racism protests and a small anti-Islamic group who had gathered on the other side of the road. The two groups were exchanging insults, and a small number of fireworks and other missiles were thrown. Police Land Rovers and officers in riot gear were reported to be separating the two groups. Officers were also seen arresting one man who was taken away in a Police Service of Northern Ireland (PSNI) car. A number of roads into Belfast have been closed due to ongoing protest activity, police said. Leeds. Two groups began hurling insults at each other in the centre of Leeds just before 1 p.m. and were kept 20 metres apart by barriers, with about 20 police officers between. About 150 people carrying St. George's flags shouted, "You're not English anymore," and that word, Muslims off our streets. Yeah, Professor even calling that, that's slander. Outside the city's central library and art gallery, but they were greatly outnumbered by hundreds of counter-protesters shouting "Nazi scum" off our streets. Right, that's right, yeah. I use that sometimes. Many of this group were waving Palestinian flags in the sunshine and chanting, "There are many, many more of us on you." Absolutely. Always will be more. Just before 1:30 p.m, one of the groups left their pen en masse, and about 200 people walked past Saturday shoppers chanting "Stop the boats" and other slogans. A line of police officers eventually arrived on vans near the Corn Exchange and walked in front of the group, some of whom were wearing masks. When the march arrived back at the much larger counter demonstration, large numbers of police placed themselves in front of the marchers, prompting some minor pushing, shoving, and screaming at the officers from the marchers. The noisy standoff then continued outside the central lobby and night gallery, with about 50 police between the two groups. Manchester. Put a jumper on, why don't you? In that picture. A dispersal notice was authorised across Manchester city centre in order to assist police in dealing with protests, Greater Manchester Police said. At about 11 a.m, anti-racism protesters were reported to be outnumbering those who had turned up for a enough is enough demonstration. Yeah, enough is enough. Enough is enough with you far-right bullshit. Chris Slater, a reporter from the Manchester Evening News, said an estimated 150 people were taking part in the national event, while about 350 people had turned out for a Stop the Far Right counter protest. Yeah, enough is enough of the far right. Nottingham. A group holding St George's and Union flags in Nottingham's Market Square were met with counter protesters shouting racist scum off our streets and Nazis not welcome. Scuffles broke out as opposing groups faced each other on King Street at about 3 p.m, with bottles and other items thrown from both sides. Chants of England Until I Die and Tommy Robinson, even though that's not his real name, were drowned out by boos from the counter protesters. Stoke-on-Trent. Police in Stoke-on-Trent were aware of pockets of disorder, and bricks were reportedly thrown at officers in the city. The Telegraph reported on Saturday afternoon footage appeared to show far-right agitators pelting stones and fireworks in the direction of police and counter-protesters in Stoke. A crowd of around 30 people, mostly men, were seen in a standoff with what appeared to be counter-protesters. The two groups were separated by around 20 yards, with a police van in between. 20 yards, that doesn't really sound like much. Hull. Windows are smashed at a hotel in Hull that was used to house asylum seekers, reports the BBC radio. Leanne Brown, reporting from Hull for the broadcaster, said, in Hull, protesters gathered outside a hotel which has been used to house asylum seekers. We've seen the crowd throwing concrete, bricks, and smashing windows with glass bottles, shouting, get them out. But yeah. There's 35 apparently, but this only shows how many it was here. So there's probably a lot more than what's been reported. Yeah. 20 far right chants drowned up by boos from counter protesters in Nottingham. That's a nice picture. Violence not welcome. A group holding St George's and Union flags in Nottingham's Market Square have been counter protesters shouting racist come off our streets, and not yet what we already said. Anti-protesters saying, where's your Tommy gone? Like the chirpy, cheap shots on. It should be, where's your Stephen gone, if that's his real name. Stephen Yaxley Lennon. Windows smashed in Hull. Yeah. Ministers expected to hold group call to discuss public order report in Sunderland. Bricks thrown in Stoke-on-Trent, which I think I already said. Liverpool, yeah, Liverpool. That's always see something about that. The counter protesters are really good in Liverpool. They always are. Shame everywhere is not like Liverpool. Ban the Sun. A very socialist city. A line of police moved in to separate groups of demonstrators who met at a pierhead in Liverpool. A crowd stormed with Union flags who had gathered outside the Mersey Ferry terminal shouting stop the boats were greeted by anti-fascist protesters who marched from a rally at St George's Hall. Chants of Tommy Robinson were greeted by shouts of Nazi scum off our streets. Some of cans were thrown from one group to the other, reports a PA news agency. You already said you read about Belfast, Leeds. You already read about that yet? Yeah. So, still going on. Fucking hell. And all because of misinformation at Southport. And from that, followed on from all this, and all the reform MPs are supporting all this. Shame. Yeah, like I said, like someone said, yeah, Yeah, the anti-racists are much bigger than racism risks. And luckily, it's no rise in Plymouth, where I'm from. I don't know about nearby places like Exeter and Truro. But yeah, so basically that's it. Nazi scum off our streets indeed. Get them all out, the EDL and disgraceful.